Hello and welcome to another video. I'm joined by the wonderful Mr. FreshOnDesk. Fresh, how are you today? It's the start of the EUL. Are we excited?
Oh, mate, I've been waiting for this since SI finished, right? It's like, I've just been like, when does EUL start? When does EUL start? It's been like a week of just like other leagues going on. EUL always used to be like the first league, so we'd start the shows off. I've been sat there watching like Brazil, NA, and I'm just like, I need EUL to start right now. So very excited.
I mean, yeah, it's finally come round to it. And I have to say, I do agree with you. This is probably one of the most excited I've ever been for a start of an EUL. I think there's with the roster mania that's gone on, a lot of the teams have been switched up. We've got a couple new orgs entering the fray, back from the dead. And yeah, I also think it may be one of the hardest to predict leagues that we've seen. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, EUL's always been that way, right? Like, I think genuinely it's been like teams haven't, there's always been an upset story within there of teams that can compete. Even all the way down to our like 8th, 9th. I know we've not got a 10th team, but when we have had the 10th team, those teams have been able to cause upsets. There's never been a free win in EUL. It's like, it feels like, if you follow football, it feels like the Premier League in that way, where everybody can beat everybody on their day, even if there are better and worse teams.
I was talking about this the other day on stream, and we were saying that, like, if you took the majority of NAL and all your best NAL teams and you stuck them in an EU, I don't think any of those NA teams would make the major. Through EUL is what I mean.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I think EU is probably one of the strongest regions depth-wise. Like you said there, it's like the Premier League. Anyone on their day could get a job done.
If you look at like the top to bottom, so like the top to bottom of like NA, like the top of NA is up here and the bottom's down there, and it's kind of the same with Brazil, and then all of the regional leagues are the same. The top to bottom of EU is like that. It's so much closer.
I think that's why I think we're going to sound like absolute Premier League merchants here when we go, oh, it's why it's the greatest league in the world. Yeah, EUL. Yeah, EUL, greatest league in the world. But Fresh, I wanted to ask your opinions and predictions about this upcoming season. For those who don't know, me and Fresh have been included in a fantasy draft as well. My team's absolutely banging. Fresh's team is woeful. And we've agreed that whoever comes below the other one is going to do a shoey out the other person's shoe of their choice. I'm going to bring a dog's welly, I reckon.
That's right. Okay, fair enough.
And we get to do a tweet on the other person's account as well. So that's going to be our forfeit. Fresh, who's on your team for the upcoming draft?
Shit, who is on my team? My team is... I've gone for like all entries, by the way. I've got Mowgli, Solotov, Creed. All right, it does get a bit less entry. I've got Skies from Ents. And then I've got Tyrant from Fnatic. I think all very, very solid players that are going to get a lot of kills.
Do you think they're as good as my team?
I don't know your team, Tom. Where's your team?
Shaiko.
Yeah, okay.
Doom.
Yeah.
Adrian.
Yeah.
Virtue.
Yeah.
And Pasha.
All right, so do you want my honest opinion on your team?
Yes.
My honest opinion on your team is obviously you've got the best player in the competition by far with Shaiko, which is fine. Doom and Adrian worry me because we've not seen what roles they'll be on, because Malta was very, very fucked for them. But they might be on really good roles. So you might have pulled a masterclass. We don't know. Who else was it?
Virtue.
Virtue, yeah, you see, he plays quite a passive role on G2.
True.
And then who?
Pasha.
Pasha's a good pick. I think Pasha's a very underrated pick.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Your team's shit, but...
I've been nice to your team. I think your team's shit. In terms of like the way that points will be scored, I think you picked a lot of good players, but I think the way points.
I wanted Skies, and you stole Skies off me.
Yeah, well, give me Adrian.
He was one yesterday. We were chatting with Fresh, and Adrian was like, "I'm not a barter item."
The thing is, my whole thing, I went into like that fantasy draft, and I was like, I need Creeds and Adrian. Like, I need the Spin Twins together. And I got Creed, and then you took Adrian. I was like, fuck you.
I literally just took him to spite you.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to be honest. And also because he's really nice. And I've met him in real life. Have you?
Oh, here we go.
There we go. There we go. But anyway, back to the predictions. Right. I want you to give me. We look here. I've basically been beneath our cameras. I've got some logos there. And I'm going to change them out. And the two logos I've started with are arguably two of the most highly anticipated teams this coming season. We've got BDS and G2. So which one would you like to start on with us here? Maybe G2, considering you're in the G2 jersey.
In terms of where I think they'll finish in the league?
Yeah.
Or just the games?
And where you think they finish in the league?
Okay. G2's a really interesting one, right? Because they looked so good domestically, right? If you look at their domestic performance, I know stage 2 for Atlanta, they went a bit weird and had to qualify for LCQs. But they're really good online. And then they get to events and they look really good, and then they play a Brazilian team and they flop. So I don't really know where to place G2. The fact that they're I think they've got a tough first week, and I think G2, their only obstacle, like G2's only obstacle to their success is themselves. It doesn't matter who their opponent is. You can put any team in front of them. G2 can beat them if they can unlock their own obstacles within their own minds. But that being said, they had a tricky Malta final where they obviously struggled against BDS after that first
Big
match.
time, yeah.
Then they're coming into a game against Fnatic and then a game against BDS back to back. Now, I'll come on to Fnatic later, but let's say that Fnatic game goes wrong. They lose against BDS. Suddenly, G2 are looking absolutely honking if that happens. So, for that reason, I'm going to put G2 in third place.
Third place. I think that's a decent shout. I think, like you said, I think a lot of people know G2 as if they get that momentum rolling and the vibes are high in the stack, then it usually results in success. But as soon as it gets a little bit down, it can maybe get a little bit shaky. I think. And I think I can't remember what I put in Up the Siege, but I think I'd have to agree with you there. I think I might have put them third or second, I reckon.
I'm going to find it now.
Yeah, I think I'd put them in third or second.
Yeah, it feels about right.
Yeah.
You put them. You put them second.
Second, and then I guess we'll go over to who I put down for first. And I'd love to know your opinions on the greatest ever super team that not only Europe but fucking the world has ever seen in Team BDS, who aren't going to drop a map this year.
See, the way that you've introduced them puts that pressure on them, right? And that's the one thing that they're going to have to deal with. Like, BDS have always had pressure, don't get me wrong. But now they've got the pressure that people are saying, like you just said, they shouldn't drop a map. And if you look at the
talent, that's a joke. That's a joke.
I know. But if you look at the talent on this roster, it is potentially the most talented roster we've ever seen in Siege. Like that, I just don't think there is a pound for pound better team than BDS at pure talent. I think that talent might mask a little bit of strategic, because they've not been together that long a time. There will always be like a catch up to play strategically. But where they fail in that, like if they fail in that, they've got 5 players who can win around 1v5 quite comfortably. You know, so I think realistically, if BDS are looking at this long term, what they should be doing is writing off this year. And I know that sounds weird, right? But they should just write off this year. If they fail at majors, if they don't get to majors, whatever, write it off and go for next year. Because if they sustain and continue as a long-term team, they will win literally everything apart from maybe Furia, right? They're probably like the 2 teams that you would say, like they're head and shoulders talent-wise. I think they will be first. I think that the team has too much talent not to be going to the majors. And yeah, it is scary. It's genuinely scary that when they fail strategically, they can just win it.
Well, we saw that at Malta a little bit, didn't we? They
exactly. Yeah.
And what was it? What was it in Malta? Was it 7-2, 7-2, 7-3? The maps they actually won against G2? I think it was something along that line.
Yeah, exactly.
But obviously they did lose one map to G2 as well, but they sort of blew everyone away in every other single game they played there. And it was their first tournament ever as a squad. And I think that, like you said there, that I know I can understand what you're saying about writing away this year, because it's the start of a new project. But I think what's scary is the fact that, a lot of people say it's Malta, but teams are still there. They want to win it when they go there. Like a lot of people say, oh G2 like don't really care about it. It's only like Malta, but they're there. So they're going to want to win it. And I think what's scary is about how dominant BDS looked when they're so fresh. But I guess we will see in the future. The next one, keeping with the French theme, I'm going to go for Ents. How do you feel about Ents in this upcoming season? My initial thoughts initially, I spoke about it in Up the Siege, which if you haven't checked out, episode 2's out now, so go check it out, link it in the description as well. I think for Ents, for me, I think they've got that added thing now where they're no longer, they're a T1 org now. They're not Team Valor. They've got that sort of big org coming back into Siege behind them, and now there's expectation.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna give Ents. This is gonna sound really harsh, but I'm gonna contextualize it. I'm gonna give Ents 8th place. And the reason why is I think that team has got an incredible amount of talent. Like, if you look at the way that they've played through tier 2, the whole, the last 6-9 months, however long, they've been by far and away the best team. I know I've had my biases with Jihu and whatever else, but they have been the best, right? They won Southbridge. That included multiple tier 1 teams. The difference now in my mind is kind of like two things. Is one, there's the pressure that they are now a tier 1 team. And the second one is Ents have sat, or Team Valor sat in this weird slot where they were below tier 1. So tier 1 teams didn't really, should I say, respect them as an opponent? Wouldn't really have like fully prepared for them, would have just assumed that they could have beaten them on basics, which I think gave a lot of opportunity to Valor.
True.
And Valor were just clearly better than the tier 3 teams on their basics, right? So they sat in this kind of weird position where they were too good for tier 2, but not necessarily went in tier 1. So they found success, but like, I wonder if they've updated like their depth of like strategy, depth of map pool, all that type of stuff, because now they're entering an arena because points are so valuable and majors are so important for SI that no team is going to underestimate them. No team is not going to prepare for them, where they've had that luxury before where teams may be underprepared for them. So I think teams will put in better performances against Valor, like in terms of the tier 1 teams, than previously. And that's where I think Valor might struggle. Obviously, we saw them struggle somewhat in Malta as well. They can't remember where they finished. Obviously, Ents now.
They lost first game and lost second game.
Yeah, so kind of they
lost
got
to
that
Wolves,
experience,
lost to Secret,
but also were straight out, right? So,
and I think arguably I know it's probably too early to say after 2 play days where you're going to finish, but starting off and it's played later today Secret, then tomorrow Wild, which are realistically 2 massive games. Because if you're Ents, you're identifying they're the games which we're looking to win. Like, you're obviously going to look to win them all, but I mean, more realistically, those are the 2 games which you're like, well, we only play 8 games.
I think a positive outlook for a team that's like thinking Ents, put a positive spin on it. Obviously, I've said 8th, and I think that they might finish down the bottom end. If a team's got a lot of people got a lot of belief in it, and you're thinking, right, this team can make like a dark horse run for the 3rd, 4th spot, to get one of those last spots into the major, then you're looking at them having to beat teams like Secret, teams like Wild, the teams that we expect to be in and around them. So yeah, it's a massive week for them.
And then this moves us on to the next. The newly reformed FBC under a new team. The Fnatic lads picking up Tyrant. I mean, this is my team, which I really don't know. Yeah. And I really want them to do well, though.
Do you know what's been funny about this team? Because obviously they were previously Rogue, then they were Koi, then they were back to Rogue, and whatever else. Throughout probably the last 15 months, like Fabian has accused me of this on the desk so much, of just shilling them.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody saw, they don't want to be known as the Expel and, major winners, but they are, right? And everyone saw the potential there. Then it goes into a shit show with losing Spoit and losing Kanto that was not foreseen and scrambling, right? And trying to catch up over the whole last year. They didn't play good Siege at all last year. They forced it. They were, to use a better phrase, they were absolutely fonking. And the changes that they've made, right? If you're looking at a team and you're looking at a style that you want to play, ideally, the way that they see the game, they want kind of 2 backline players, a link player, and then 2 frontline. And often they go as 5 as well. And I think the one thing for Fnatic now is they feel very balanced. They feel that they've achieved that, by adding in Jegs, by adding in Tyrant. They feel that Jegs and Jigsaw will be a really aggressive, good frontline duo partnership to go together, and Tyrant can be that link player that can join in with the front three, or can play the backline roles on maps that require it, Clubhouse, Skyscraper, that type of stuff. And I think when the team feels balanced and feels proper, because it didn't previously, right? Previously, when they had like Leader and Noodle, for example, Leader was like a third support player, whereas they wanted like a link player. And Cryan was obviously then lurking, which left it all on Noodle to be the entry, and he's not even really a natural entry. So it didn't feel balanced back then. Obviously, it went a bit weird in stage 2 as well. So now they've got that balance. I think you'll actually see, or I hope, even though it's we've not seen them yet, I hope you see better calling from Leon. I hope you see him taking less risks when he took a lot of unnecessary risks last year. I hope you see Deepak feeling a bit more safe and secure in his role, because he's one of the best supports in the world.
Yep.
And in turn, it all starts to like come together rather than fall apart. I'm quietly confident about Fnatic. I have been quietly confident about this team the last 6 stages. It's just worth, and I do seem to, that they are good friends of mine, so I guess that's maybe influenced it a little bit. I would put this team in 4th position.
4th. I think that's where I put them.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think I think everything you said there is fantastic, and I think since that Berlin, I think it's finally feels like they're happy. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like they're trying to fix or fill a spot or a hole. It finally feels like they've got that setup and makeup of a team that they're happy with. And I mean, what a baptism of fire to start us off later today up against G2.
Honestly, I think it's a really good opportunity for them. I think G2 will still be reeling after the BDS loss. G2 will probably have one eye on the BDS game tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
And I think if Fnatic can start strong, I think it's a really, really good time to play G2. Because G2 are not going to know Fnatic's map pool. G2 are still going to be very much thinking about themselves. And I think there's good opportunity there.
Yeah, and I think maybe there's that little bit of complacency you sometimes see from G2. Not complacency, but it's that sort of attitude of, well, we're the best.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I guess that leads us into our next team, which is going to be, you can't even see it because I did a black logo on a background, so I'm just going to drag it over your face. One sec. Nice. I'll drag it over me. It's Team Secret. Team Secret. Team Secret is your next team. And I mean, this is one which is a little bit close to your heart, isn't it? Because of your boy Adrian. So.
Honestly, do you know what, Tom? I'm like a proud dad today.
Yeah.
Like, having literally, I know people might say they knew him first or whatever, but like having gotten involved with their project team, with Jihu, previously under different orgs and whatever, seeing those guys progress, and especially Adrian, and I know we'll come on to in Crete, going from these genuine like tier 4 underage players that didn't know the theory of the game, and that's maybe a little bit disrespectful, but didn't know it at a tier 1 level, to watch them progress all the way through and to hit tier 1. Like today for me is like huge, like proud dad moment. So I'm very excited. Coming on to Team Secret. Now, the theory of Team Secret, I like it, if you know what I mean. If you just put those 5 names as somebody who knew the players but didn't know how, for example, Malta went, right? You would say, right, Doom, Adrian, Grubby, that is a pretty solid front line. That's 3 frontline players that you want on your team with their Miracle and Savage in the backline. It didn't, and that to me is quite an exciting team. It's a team that front 3 could go head to head with basically, more or less any team apart from G2, maybe BDS, or BDS, maybe G2. They could go head to head with any front 3 in any other team and have success on their day, because that's a good front 3. Then Malta comes along, and I'm seeing June playing like flex operators. I'm seeing Adrian on Monty, and I'm wondering what the hell is going on with this team, because it looks like they've got all of the ingredients. It's like they're trying to make a cake, right? but they're not putting all the ingredients together in the right places, in the right order, and they're just getting a weird batter, like a sloppy batter rather than a cake. That's what it felt like watching Malta.
Sloppy batter.
And for me, like, I'm watching, obviously with a vested interest in Adrian.
Yeah.
And I'm watching him on Monty and on Shit Guns, and I'm just like, I know this guy as a first entry has that star, like that stardust, that talent that.
And that's what got him picked up.
Yeah, and that's what got him picked up. And then seeing him on Monty and without any good guns and Echo and shit, I was just like, no, what have you done to my boy? Yeah. If if they put their egos aside with regards to the roles that they initially set out and have changed their roles and updated it a little bit, Secret can have success. Like, as much as I've kind of just gone in on them for the roles there, they did beat BDS on Skyscraper, which I think in itself is a massive feat, because that BDS is one of BDS's best maps. They obviously got third in that tournament as well. We can't take that away from them. They did find, I think, 4 Secrets levels relative success at Malta. I just think that the expectation is they could have been better than they were. I am therefore going to put Secret in, oh god, 6th position.
6th position. Yeah. I think I might have put them somewhere similar, because I think we put in Up the Siege. I sort of said it's a new team, it's a new project. Yeah, it's very, very hard to sort of place aside when you don't necessarily know what the roles are. Yeah. You're not entirely sure how it's going to be played, and yeah, it's just a new team, and I think it can be difficult to place a team when it's fresh.
Yeah, it's honestly crazy, because like if you look at the players that they've had, where they had, you know, from if you talk about like the year of 2023, I know we're just entering 2024, but they've had like Kendra, who played SI with them, U4, YZN, Astro, Sleben, Miracle, obviously Miracle's still in, Falls. Like there's so many.
And you had Kayak and Oscar as well, didn't you?
Yeah, and then they had those guys kind of trialing in the off-season as well. It's like there's been such a churn of players that it's like there's no baseline for Secret, like apart from just expectations of where they've previously been. But even then, I don't know if that's a good baseline for them. So I have no idea where Secret are going to finish, in all honesty.
Well, I guess we'll move on to the next team, which is going to be... I'm going to go with Wild here. I'm intrigued to know about your opinion on Wild.
Look, I'm just going to get this right out of the rip. I'm going to put them in last place.
Yep.
Wild showed so much promise through 2023. There was a lot to like about Wild, and I think there's a lot to like about the way that Pat Bull and teams with Pat Bull in played the game. In terms of the creativity that those teams exert, basically. They do things that you wouldn't think about, and I really enjoyed watching them last year. Now, what I was hoping for with their changes that they were going to make after last year, I was hoping one key thing. I was hoping they were going to retain Jakes. They didn't. I don't actually know what the hell even went on there, but obviously they didn't retain Jakes. Now, I suppose a little bit of insider knowledge, but some of the players that they're rocking with recently, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, they weren't rocking with. They were rocking with other people. And, you know, things transpire and things change. And that's what's kind of happened with Wild, is it feels like they've scrambled a squad together that if you wanted to, you know, when you develop a team, and they've had so long in the off season to develop this team, they get people locked in, develop what you want and a vision and what the players you want. They didn't envision this this team of 5 people coming through and playing a EUL play they want. Nobody would have put these 5 people together then when they knew they were making changes. So from that, this team is so new that it's very hard to then put them in any kind of position. Add on to the fact that, let's just be honest about it, there are concerns with regards to firepower, with regards to shooting power, with having both Packbull and Nello on the same team. If Kanto, like Lolo's an exciting player. I'm really happy because Lolo's like, you know, a little bit overdue a shot into tier 1, probably, you know, because of being Italian and you know the way that English speaking teams have gone about things. Lolo should have been in tier 1 long time ago, so he's getting his shot. But in my mind, if Lolo and Kanto don't hard carry a lot, that team might well suffer. And I'm probably going to eat my own words on this when they don't, because this is exactly what happened last year. They formed a team in like 3 weeks and then played really well and should have gone to both majors and SI. So,
Yeah. And
again,
I guess they got a lot of experience though, haven't they? And I mean,
yeah,
I know I agree with you about the lack of gunpowder, but you bring in Kanto and Nella, you've got two of the most experienced players. Which, I mean, if you're going to scrap a team together last minute, you probably want players who know the game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, which is exactly, they had obviously Hungary last year as well. Yeah. It's the same kind of thing. And I think they've gone back to that formula of, we don't necessarily, we haven't necessarily got what we wanted, but that experience will help us.
Yeah.
And Kanto on his day is obviously still one of the best players in the world. It's just kind of, I don't know if you put that team up against firepower-wise most other teams in EUL, 99 times out of 100, most other teams win that. If you know what I mean. You put them up against BDS. I think BDS have got a better front line. You put them up.
Well, they play BDS later today, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. BDS have got a better back line than the front line. That's just BDS. So yeah, I don't know. I think I've got to pick somebody to come last. And I think
you know what's going to happen now. Now we've said all about bloody Wild. They're going to beat BDS today, and we're going to look like idiots.
That'd be fucking class. I'm not going to lie. Do you know what? If there's anything about me, I don't care if I look like an idiot.
No.
That would be.
I think I can agree with you on that one as well.
It would be boring, right? It would be so bloody boring.
That's why whenever you insult my predictions and say, "What are you predicting this team for?" That's absolutely shite. And I'm like, "Oh well, I could just go, oh, the best team's gonna win." You know what I mean? But it's good to go for something a little bit different, and maybe a team that maybe needs something a little bit different. Wolves, because it's sort of been the same 5 that we've seen for a while now, and it hasn't changed once again. Obviously, SI wasn't what they were hoping for. We saw them lose to Team 86 in Malta a few weeks ago as well. So sort of just interested on where you're placing Wolves this season.
We've suddenly switched to a bit of a somber note on Wolves. I don't know. Well, like the feeling about Wolves and like, when you find out stuff, obviously being kind of, I suppose, in talent, speaking to players and teams that you don't know if you should share publicly or whatever, but like the vibes coming out of Wolves do not seem good. Is probably the best way of saying it. There has not been good stories coming out from this team, especially with the Malta experience. And I suppose that's where I'll leave it. If we look at the team, they need a third fragger. They just do. It can't always be on Mowgli and Deadshot, because Mowgli is such a solo player that he can be targeted, he can be found out, and he can have poor games.
I'm speaking from the man who put him in his pocket, Mr. FreshOnDesk, in the Malta cause.
Oh dear. Yeah, that should have been us in Malta. Whatever. But yeah, so I think Mowgli can be the strongest or weakest link on Wolves, right? In my mind. Deadshot is also still inconsistent. I think, he had good games at SI as well. But after that, you're looking at Bibu, P4, and Shinka, and you're thinking, where are the kills coming from? Shinka can clutch, and I think you don't want to rely on clutches, but at least he can. And then you're kind of thinking of those 3, who's the one that's going to step up and provide the kills? I am very, very, very shocked that Wolves haven't made changes. Even in hindsight, if you look back 6 months, like if you look at the Ents guys stepping up and the fact that, Wolves potentially could have taken on Leaky Fact back in the day, for example.
Yeah.
They've passed up on all these French up-and-coming players. And now, where are they going to go? Because the Team Valor team that they've probably been sat there thinking, if it goes wrong, we'll take one of their guys. They're now in EUL.
Yeah.
So, it's not exactly like it's going to be easy to take one of those guys. I worry for Wolves. I worry that their constant international failures. I know that they say, well, we make all the tournaments, but when they get there, they fail, and they don't perform anywhere near their capabilities. I think that's the big thing. It's not the results, it's the performances aren't near where we know Wolves are capable of at international events again and again. How much mental toll is that taking on them? And how much is that like fracturing their team, basically? they're still good enough. They're still an online best of one team. That's a big benefit to them, is the best of ones in their map pool. But I do worry for them about how their team is operating kind of internally. So I'm going to put Wolves in the 5th position, if that's available.
Yeah, I think it is. I think what we got left is 7th and 3rd. Wait, did you put G2? No, we got 7th and 2nd. 7th and 2nd. So the next team we're going to come over to is one team which I was actually a bit surprised about at SI this year, and happily surprised. In the fact that we saw a lot of other teams making changes. It was sort of, I think the direct comparison for this team in Virtus Pro was M80. It was this team that had performed over this past year poorly. Swiss stage out. And everyone was saying that they couldn't do it on the international stage. And then VP, they didn't make any changes. They stuck with what they knew. They worked on their map pools, worked on how they played, and it seemed to go a lot better for them at SI. And I mean, haven't they won the past 2 EUL stages as well?
Yeah. So VP for me, I'm putting in 2nd.
Yeah.
I quite famously am a bit of a VP, not a hater. I don't hate them. I don't hate them all, but I think the way that they play Siege is outdated, and they had a very small map pool. Now we get to SI. They've increased their map pool. Seeing them play Border and Chalet and Skyscraper, these maps that they've traditionally hated, have always permabanned, they've brought them in. So they've gone from like a 4 or 5 map pool to like an 8. Perfect. That is what that team needed to do. The reason that they needed to do that is because they do so much of the same stuff. Mm-hmm. When they were operating on a 5 map pool, teams were just able to pick the map that they were going to play against VP and then counter them on it really well. That's not a factor anymore because they've got such a big map pool. There's much less certainty for teams about what maps they're going to. So VP have got that map pool advantage back. Now, their style for me, don't really think it fits into the 2024 meta, if you want to call it that. However, what underpins their Siege doesn't matter what style of Siege they're playing. What underpins that is like probably the team in the world that has the best team play, that excels at the team play, excels at not making mistakes, excels at discipline, at not overreaching in those scenarios. When have you ever seen VP lose a 3v1? Never.
Rarely ever. Yeah.
Never.
It's discipline, isn't it?
It's discipline. It's discipline, it's attitude, it's teamwork, it's fundamentals, it's communication. So you could play some of the wonkiest strategical Siege ever, but if you've got that fundamental underlying it all, you will find success. And I think that's what VP are about, is that, you know, as much as their Siege to the eyes might not look good, it might not be what everybody else is playing, doesn't matter, because they punish teams that don't have that same discipline, and that's how they beat them. So I think VP will be super strong again, even though that, you know, their Siege style isn't as super strong. I think if they actually learned and played Split and, you know, learned the updated meta, they literally could be one of the best teams in the world. And, well, they are one of the best teams in the world.
I mean, yeah, they're not far off at the moment, are they?
Like, they really could be competing. But yeah, I think 2nd, go to the major, carry on building on that. Solid stage for VP expected.
And then that leaves us with, last but certainly not least, ITB at the helm, King Ken, Kangaroo Kenny, with one of your boys going into that squad as well.
I've gone a little bit wrong here because my plan was to have them in at least 6th. So they're 7th for some reason. I don't know where I've gone wrong on my prediction, but whatever. I think ITB will be a solid, so obviously officially 7th. I think ITB will be a solid middle of the road team that if they exceed expectations can be taking the 3rd, 4th slot for the majors. If they deliver below expectations, they'll be, you know, bottom of the league. It's kind of like unknown at this moment in time. But again, another proud dad moment. Creeds is going to make his debut for ITB, playing as a first entry, which I think for me, that kid's got so much talent. And I'm really, like, again, really proud of him. I think first entry hasn't necessarily been where he has played in tier 2, tier 3, especially obviously he had Adrian there in front of him and MC at Jihu. When he trialed for some tier 1 teams using much more of a lurk kind of flex position. But he's given first entry a go. I think if he gets over his mental side about playing that role, he's got the talent to be up there with some of the best first entries. but it's all on him. This team has some exciting pickups, and I think Kangaroo Kenny is the best coach in the league for extracting individual performance out of people. If you look at the turnaround that he had with Noah and the turnaround that he's had with some of these players, a lot of people have played their best Siege in terms of players whilst under his kind of tutorage. And I'm hoping that's the same for ITB. They're a team that looks like they want to kick on from last year, where they had a lot of good things going, but they lacked, for example, a little bit of firepower.
Yeah.
Adding in Creeds and Oscar, I think, actually gives them that firepower. And if they get a good run together and, on their day, maybe catch a little bit of luck with the other teams playing a little bit poorly as well. I'm not going to say, like, on their day, they're going to be better than everyone else. They can make that dark horse run. But expectations for me is that they will firmly be a kind of middle of the pack teams that will cause upsets against some of the, like, they'll be the differentiating factor in my mind with their results against the top teams as to where the top teams go.
Yeah.
Like, if teams beat ITB, I think they'll be a real good shoe-in for being a top team. I think that's about where I place them.
I think, yeah, well, all we have to look at is, what was it, stage 2 last year? They were one best of 3 away from making Atlanta.
Yeah.
Up against G2.
Incredible.
But obviously fell out 0-2 to G2 on that day. They will get their shot back at it, though, today, going up against Wolves, which I think is going to be an absolute corker of a game. Yeah. And very excited for it. But Mr. Jack Fresh on desk, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a pleasure to rack your brains about this.
Thank you.
And yeah, excited to see you on the desk later today. I'm probably going to ship this bad boy out before it starts. So then everyone on it, all 10 people who watch it can have a laugh at our predictions.
Yeah, on, that's what they can do.
But Fresh, thank you very much, you legend. Love you, brother, and best of luck on EUL today. All right.
Thank you, mate.
Bye-bye, guys.